Hello everyone, and welcome to the UBA Season 3, Week 3 Power Rankings. I thought I was mixing up my threes, but then I remembered they're both threes. Or mixing up the season with the week, but then I remembered they're both threes. I don't know, if you get what I meant then. I don't know, I'm just being retarded. Anyways, yeah, I'll be getting right into these just right before I right before I get into them. I decided to try and do like a community one as well, where everyone fills out forms. And then I'll just average them and put them all together and get a community list too. And I just kind of wanted to do that just to see where the variance is. I thought it'd be interesting, and I'm a bit curious of how it looks like. So yeah, that's about it. I guess I'll get into it now. Number 11, I have Flair still. Who's up 0 spots. He got beat by Tepig, who hasn't been on great form. And in this game, Flair just really did not seem to have any real game plan or goal in what he was doing. He really just played on the back foot the entire time, switching checks into what Tepig was doing, and then like sometimes not even switching checks in and just like getting murdered by super effective moves over time while he just did nothing and eventually got beat pretty badly. It just really was not a well played game by him. He also didn't bring his Kyrim, which you should probably be bringing that every week. So yeah, just like poorly played. I couldn't trace any prep or like see any reasoning for any of his prep. He just kind of got dumpstered and didn't really do anything the entire game. He just kind of sat there and let Tepig take the initiative. I don't think the only point he ever brought anything offensive in was at the very end. And even then, every time he brought his offensive things in, they either forced a sack from Tepig, which probably wasn't necessary, and then they died, and then they died the following turn after getting revenge, or they just did nothing in general. So yeah, especially against a team as offensive as Tepig's, he really needed to bring forms of speed control, possibly Scarfers, priority, anything, but he just brought fat, and then just let his fat get eaten alive by Tepig's offense because his fat wasn't capable of doing anything. And then after Tepig's offense was done eating his fat, he brought out a few offensive members. Tepig made sacks where he probably didn't even need to, and then came in and revenged him, and he didn't even care that they were getting revenge. He just let them die. So yeah, poorly played. I really didn't think the prep was very good. I couldn't even trace it really in my head of what he was trying to do. So yeah, I'll be keeping it at number 11. Number 10, arguably even a worse performance than Flair, I have Kudo. The only reason I was considering dropping him below Flair, but I'm going to keep him up because I think Kudo has a better draft. I think he's capable of better because he played fairly well versus me, I felt, last week. But any semblance of playing well he showed last week, he really just dropped this week, it seemed. He played Jeff and got 6-0'd quite convincingly. And if you take a quick look at the bottom of your screen, you'll see an out-of-date roster of what he has. He now has over, I think it's over Savali, he has Primarina. Yeah. So you see quite a few threats. Like, I think his team's very good, like quite good this season. He's got a lot of offensive threats. He has the option to really bring so many threats, it's hard for his opponent to stop. But when you have all of those threats and then you choose to bring Hitmonlee, Clefairy, and Sableye to the game, it really makes the job a lot easier on your opponent, especially when your opponent can bring in Bisharp on your Prankster Sableye and proceed to kill all 3 of your tier 5s for no reason. The Bisharp came in on the Will-O-Wisp, the Will-O-Wisp was a fine play, possibly catching Jeff off guard with the Prankster. Jeff didn't fall for it, which is good on him, but I can respect the play because there was a chance he fell for it. So up to that point it was fine. Then he let Sableye take like 80% from a knockoff from Bisharp for the price of knocking off Bisharp, which I don't think was worth it. Then switched into Clefairy. Bisharp is a steel type, by the way. I think Kudo then realized that it was a steel type, then went into his Hitmonlee, took about 90 on that, then switched out of his Sucker Punch back into Clefairy, and then got Iron Headed. And so about like 5 turns into the game, Hitmonlee was on 7%, Clefairy was gone, and Sableye was on like 20%. So he brought 3 garbage tier 3s. When he has like so many threats here, like look at all those threats. He has all those threats, but he brought the 3 tier 5s instead and let Bisharp kill all of them within 5 turns. Like that's just bad prep and bad play right there. Once that happened, there was really nothing he could do. He got crit by a Stone Edge from Rhydon on his Zard, which is a bit unfortunate, but like if you saw, the Zard was doing about -3 to the Rhydon each time, so like even if he did manage to eat even if he did manage to dodge, or even if he did get crit, he was still going to get killed by 2 Stone Edges before he could Earthquake the Rhydon to death. I also don't think it's a good habit to run Earthquake Zard on a Bulu team unless you're sure that Bulu isn't going to screw it with terrain. And I suppose it didn't this match, so I guess good on him for maybe predicting an outcome, but also I don't think you really ever predict all 3 of your tier 5s dying in the first few turns if you're predicting the game script that heavily, so I really don't think that was a planned thing, and maybe more just that he got lucky. But yeah, it was a defensive Zard, but it was never going to beat the Rhydon. Maybe if he brought like Wisp Roost, he could have possibly done something, but even then I think Rhydon's probably too strong. But yeah, the Rhydon was never going to break through, and even if he did manage to hacks and dodge Stone Edges, Lop, as long as he hit one of the Stone Edges, Lop was always going to come in and finish it with Fake Out. So yeah, he just didn't bring his threats, played very poorly, and just got utterly smashed. He also stayed in with his Bulu against Skarmory for a few years, just horn leeching it until he died to Rocky Helmet. He did not seem prepared to take on Jeff's team and just got flattened. So yeah, really needs to actually bring his threats, try and actually break down his opponent's team, and he definitely did not do it this game. But I did see at least some potential in him last week, so I'm hoping that he can at least return to that form and get back on track, because this week was quite bad. Number 9, I have Pete dropping 3 spots. The roster also at the bottom here is out of date. He now has the Mega Shark over the Mega Land Shark. And what was his other trade? Delphox for... trying to remember what it was. Heracross. So, I really did not like the roster moves. I thought that Garchomp and Excadrill worked quite well together in a Breaking Core. So that's really, I think it really hurts his team to lose Garchomp. I don't think his 2 new members really function very well under it. Like, I can see the synergy with like being able to outrun even Scarfreeze with Sticky Webs up with Shark, but like something I said before in the post-draft rankings, that this team is not very strong. Like, he's got a lot of fat that really doesn't hit that hard. Like, before in the draft, or in the post-draft rankings, I said like Garchomp is really his only thing capable of actually doing damage. And then he dropped the Garchomp, and now he's got Mega Shark. And Mega Shark is fine, but it can only really come in once a game to be effective. It's really just much less effective if you have to bring it out multiple times in order to do breaking. But like, I don't see what on his team does any breaking now. Like, everything is just pitifully weak. Like, he'll have to run banded sets of certain things. There's just no natural strength on his team. All of these mons on his team are just naturally not very high in attack. I think Heracross and Excadrill have the highest attack stats. Let me check real quick. What's Heracross's attack stat? I'm pulling up my phone real quick. Heracross 125, which is like okay, but not outstanding. Excadrill's is 135, which is okay, but not outstanding. And then we've got after that probably Latias. Actually, I think Delmise is decent, but Delmise is too slow to be offensive threat. Yeah, 131. You have a problem when Delmise is one of your most powerful guys. Latias is like, what, 110? Yeah, 110. So like, he really just has very little power on his draft right now, and I think that's really gonna make it difficult for him to break down. break down teams, and I think before he had a much better, much more cohesive team that actually had some breaking power on it. That's just the roster moves. Now onto the game. He really had almost a sort of rematch from last week where Skarmory just did him in the butt, but this time he had another chance, and he didn't bring the extra drill, which I can respect this game because there was a Tangrowth as well as a what's its face, as well as Selly and Zygarde. So it's going to be hard for drill to break through, I guess. So I can respect not bringing the drill, but not bringing Fire Fang on Chomp was just inexcusable. Like, he had a Selly. He was going to bring defensive Selly. It's the most obvious check to Chomp, and he just didn't bring Fire Fang. Like, I don't get it, dude. I also think that he could have, like, it was a rematch of, almost in some ways a rematch of it against Jeff last week or the week before he played, because I don't know, it's like almost 2 weeks ago at this point, where like Skarmory, Celesteela, very similar, not similar, but like they have the same typing, same defensive roles. They're always going to check Chomp and Extra Drill. You understand that they're going to come to do that, and I criticized Pete for not bringing Mega Chomp at all, and when it had the opportunity to SDE and Fire Fang and really blow back Skarmory, when Skarmory really can't do much back to it. Well, Celesteela is pretty similar. If he brought SD and Fire Fang, he really could have broken down the Skarmory. If he brings, say, Z, X Scissor, Extra Drill to smash the Tangrowth, and then like Rock Slide or something, he can really, he has what it takes to break down PK's stall. But he played against the stall team and then brought Substitute, which is like an okay bring, I suppose, if you like want to avoid Toxic or something, but it's nowhere near as good as Swords Dance Fire Fang. Like, Swords Dance Fire Fang is what you bring to this matchup, and he just didn't do it. He was eternally walled by Celesteela, and that should not happen with such an obvious check. And past that, it was a stall team, and I've already hit on how weak the rest of his team is besides Chomp, so he just got walled out. So yeah, I really think he didn't understand how to use one of his Garchomp to break for his drill, and that really held him back, and now he's lost his Garchomp, so I think that's going to make it even worse. So maybe I'm not seeing something that Pete's seeing, but I really don't like this roster move. I think he just really didn't understand how to use one Mon to break for another, and he has made this problem worse for himself, I think. So yeah, that's it on Pete. Number 8, I have Tepig, who picked up his first win against Flare. Like I said before, Flare just kind of sat down and let Tepig do whatever he wanted to him. He just really did not put any offensive pressure on, and when he did, he let it be instantly revenged and taken out of the game. He just didn't understand how to use offense and defense together in tandem to put himself in a good scenario. Like, he just sat around with his defense as opposed to using his offense and going on to his defense when he needed it. He just sat around with his defense until, and that can work against like inexperienced coaches, but Tepig is a good battler. He just took advantage, used his offensive members, which were at least much better than last week in terms of being able to break down his team. They were not very good in terms of breaking down PK's team, but they were able to do the job here. Took down Flair's team, because Flair's team isn't even that bulky. He should really be relying more on his offense. So I don't think it's a super impressive win. He got the job done. It was a clean win. Just not incredibly impressive. So Tepig will need to pick up some higher profile wins, in my opinion, to really start moving up. But yeah, I have him at number 8 for now. But he did play much better than last week, I think. But that also largely in part has to do with Flare being a much easier opponent than PK. So moving on to number 7, I have Robot Boy and the New York Granbuls. Sorry, I blanked on your name for a second. But you're like new to the league though, so you gotta bear with me. I just kind of forgot your name for a second. I do know your name's Cody, and I wanted to say Cody, but haven't like said anyone by their actual name so far. So I was trying to think of your username, and I always forget it for some reason. I guess enough with that. He played me this week, and I think he had a really bad matchup. If you look at his team, he's highly reliant on like the Slow King, Amoonguss Core, Rotom Heat to some extent, and really, it's a well-balanced team, but he doesn't have too many fast offensive threats. And I have a Weavile and a Medicham, so they kind of really do just dumpster that core. And he doesn't have very many mons faster than those two. He's got like Alola Tails, Pinsir, and Garchomp, which are all fine, but like definitely not. You definitely want more than that. He doesn't even have Sneasel anymore. He's got Persian, and he did bring all of them except for the Alola Tails, which I think he maybe should have brought, but I don't know. I don't know if it would have made much difference. Some real criticisms I have for him is like bring Dusclops again and it really not doing anything. I think he's a little too eager to bring it when it really doesn't provide much for the team. And yeah, I think when he saw my team and how offensive it was and how hard it is for him to deal with it, he really should have. I think he really should have game planned to play offensively and really try and take the driver's seat of the game and not let me get my breakers in and do what I wanted, because that was really his only chance. Because if he let me get into a position where I could bring in my breakers, then he was not going to win the game. And inevitably, that's what I did, and that's what my team's supposed to allow me to do. That's what Coco is very great at, and it's what Medicham does, or Medicham and Coco are meant to do in tandem. But I think he focused too much on how to win the game defensively, when in reality I don't think he had any means to win this game defensively, and really should have looked to limit my ability to get offensive members in against him, and how to break down my defense before, and while not letting my offense come in, I think was his best way of winning. But because he tried to play it so defensively, it really did not make it nearly as difficult as it could have been for me. So at this point, he has losses to me and Reggie, and then a Hacks win versus Jolty. But I don't think he's been playing terribly, which is why I have him up over Tepig and stuff. I think he's been playing solidly. He just needs probably a bit more prep, bit more specific prep, and maybe a bit better mindset in prep. Probably a bit more offensive too. I think he's been looking at games too defensively. But past that, yeah, I guess that's about it. Yeah, so I have him at number 7. Number 6, I have DeWinchell falling down 3 spots after getting beat quite badly by Reggie. With what DeWinchell did this week, had a lot of similar things to the finals, except I feel that I think DeWinchell has a serious problem where he the way I like to see it, and I think the right way to see it, and how most good players see the game, is how you can get the most value out of every single turn. Every single turn you need to be doing something useful to get yourself into a better position to win the game. Whether it's making a switch to something, you have to like observe the consequences of what's going to happen, and each turn's like a valuable portion of the game to really put yourself in a position to win it. And clicking fake out with Sableye is not something that's ever going to provide value for you. Like, it provides the value of getting your Mega off safely. I'll give you that. And then you can block hazards for the rest of the game. Cool. But after that, you should never be clicking fake out again. There are so many more valuable things you can do than get like 5% on a Mon and a turn. Like, it's just utterly useless to keep clicking that. Because every time Reggie was just switching and getting more, like getting himself into a position at the price of like 5% on a Mon. Now, like, you might say, well, that's a really specific example. Like, he didn't lose because he was clicking with Sableye, or clicking fake out with Sableye, and that's true that that's a specific example, but that kind of uselessness is really something that I think D. Winchell really struggles with, and something he really needs to change is how you can get something out of every single turn. And D. Winchell really just does not do a great job at that, and I think he really needs to improve with it. And that Sableye example was just like the greatest of them, or like sort of the epitome of it. But he constantly clicking fake out, bringing in Shaman just to seed flare. Shaman didn't even do too bad this game, but like leaving in Registeel against Kyurem just to let Kyurem eventually Earth Power to death, which I suppose did work, but probably wouldn't if Reggie just had brought Roost. Did he bring Roost? No, I think he Wish-Healed it. But regardless, there's so many more things he could have done. Things like bring Milo in just to Scald or Toxic Aromatisse and make. I suppose it does make a heal bell, but like he just really was not taking advantage in putting himself in a position to win. Where was I? So things like bring Toxic or Will-O-Wisp, or even Seismic Toss. Does Sableye learn Seismic Toss? If it does, or Nightshade or something. But like, there's so many more things you could be doing out of that turn. Bringing things like maybe T-Wave, Toxic, or I don't even know, just anything on Registeel to get worthwhile value out of turns instead of just kind of sitting around and doing nothing. Same thing with Milo. It really just did not provide him any utility that entire game. When he went to his Fat, it really was just sitting around and doing nothing and letting Reggie abuse it. He also brought almost no offense to really beat down Reggie's team. Now, it's a kind of a problem in building, but his only good offensive members are Victini, Shaman, Swellow, and Raikou. He didn't bring Raikou. Does Reggie's team like weak to it? I can't remember if Raikou. I'll pull it up real quick because I don't remember Reggie's team too well right now. If like it was justifiable not to bring a Raikou. Reggie's team. He's got a Lando, which I suppose can scare it off. Lando and Pharaoh, but you got Aura Sphere. No, I think you probably should have brought Raikou to this game. It has a pretty good matchup. So I think Raikou probably should have come here, especially over Swellow, which like he has a T-Tar. And I could maybe understand if you're bringing Swellow to break down the Tyranitar for Victini, because Victini can do so much work if T-Tar's gone. But he just didn't do that. He also brought a really dog shit Victini set. Don't ever bring that again. Like Victini is so good with V-Create and like hitting things really hard, and it really is a bit of an underutilization to bring like work up. Like, just don't do that. I think you should really focus on putting Victini in a good position to win, and that Victini set was just really bad. It was never going to win. Outside of that, the Swellow, really big misplay to leave it in on Lando. He should have been punished for it. Also, the play where he stayed in on another Earth Power from Registeel, I also really disagreed with. I think it was right of Reggie to Dragon Pulse and predict it, but I think that's just not seeing the value of Registeel, especially at that point in the game where T-Tar probably claimed every single time if Registeel went down. So yeah, I think he just had a lack of offense that game. So no real way to beat down Reggie's team. He kind of just sat around with his Fat, and his Fat really was not providing him any utility or even really beating Reggie's offense for that matter. And because of that, Reggie eventually won pretty dominantly. So yeah, I think that's what D. Winchell needs to work on, and that's why I was hesitant to rank him so highly and like making the preface that I felt that he could definitely fall if he met against higher coaches, because I felt like the higher level coaches would be able to abuse the fact that his Fat really wasn't doing anything and that he wasn't getting the most out of every turn. I've probably talked too much about this, but I'll move on. Number 5 now, I have Jolty, which he's 0-3 still, so people are probably very, I don't know, debatable to rank him this highly, but I really feel that he's the only coach who I can really say every time he's playing, I agree that he actually understands how to get the most out of every play. He's making plays that he's playing the game to win the game, unlike a lot of other coaches who really don't. He knows how to get the game in his favor and use his offense. The irony almost is that he hates offense. He has so much fat here, but he's the only one who knows how to use the offense. This team is out of date, by the way, too. But yeah, he played Hazy this week and played him close. He should have beat Robot Boy, and he played me close, a lot closer than the score indicates. He nearly had the game, actually, in the end. It was definitely not a 4-0 victory, I would say. He also should have gotten an extra differential point if he didn't miss like 2 consecutive hurricanes. So I would consider the game he played versus me close, and I would consider myself a pretty high-end opponent. Robot Boy, he should have won, and Hazy, he also played very close, who I have as a top 3 player. So, yeah, I think that Jolty is really playing at the level of a number 5 coach here. I would pick him to be any of the coaches below him at this point in the rankings, which is why I have him here. The only major issues I have with him is that I really don't like his team, but he's the only one utilizing it and really playing to win, I feel. In terms of his performance this week against Hazy, I think he played the game fine. I think there's he was under-prepped for Zapdos, I feel, and that really, in the end, kind of turned him in. But he prepped the game fairly well. I don't see any major problems with it, other than the Zapdos misprepping, or like not bringing enough things to deal with the Zapdos. And he played it fine as well. I think Hazy just had, I wouldn't even say the matchup, Hazy also made some good plays and did what he needed to do to win, which is why I have him up as high. But I do feel that Jolt is probably because he had such a hard schedule to begin the season, I think he's about to probably go on a winning spree, or at least like win a heavy amount of it the rest of the season. I expect him to probably make playoffs, or at the very least be in discussion for it, if not make it. I think he just had a very unfortunate first 3 weeks, and I really do believe that he's going to bounce back from it, which is why I have him this high. So yeah, I guess that's it on Jolty. Number 4, I have PK, who's moving up a surprising 4 amount. It's mainly based off his record. He has like decent wins. He has, of course, that loss to D Winchell. I guess you can also kind of put it down to his loss versus D Winchell was back when he had this team at the bottom, not his updated one. He actually has rocks now. Yeah, he played fine against PETA. I don't see any. He had a few weird plays, like going into Tang on Rabombi. Like, that's a bug type dude. Don't do that. And going into Jellicent on the Garchomp, which I guess makes sense if you want to preserve its health, or preserve Selly's health, and don't want to take a Fire Fang after an SD or something. But then taunting it after it puts up sub is a really dumb play. I don't like that. Offered you no utility. You don't do that. He had a few weird plays like that to start the game, but then after that, I felt like he played the game really solidly, did what he needed to do to win. I don't agree with Earthquaking on it so much, especially against the Klefki, when Heavy Slam did pretty much just as much and stopped switchings. But I guess that's just nitpicking at that point, and it really didn't bite him. So yeah, I just feel he played the game fine. And he's really just up here based on his record and the fact that I don't see any super big problems with his play like I did with the rest of them. He still has kind of a whack team, but he definitely improved upon it with his transactions. So yeah, I have him at number 4, but this is probably also a really volatile ranking. I forget who he has next week, but he can definitely rise or fall a lot based on his wins here, or wins or losses here. Wins can really solidify him up this high, but if he loses, then he can definitely drop. So it's his ranking to keep or lose, I feel. So on to number 3. I have Reggie, who beat D. Winchell this week, and I really went into depth of how he beat D. Winchell this week earlier. I think for the most part, Reggie played the game fine. I actually don't have really any really super big problems with how he played, except for maybe trading Tyranitar for Swellow. In the end, it turned out to be the right play because he was able to because the Victini turned out to be a dog shit set, so he really didn't even need T-Tar for it. But I think he could have been in big trouble if he took that beside into U-turn for the Swellow, and then Victini actually turned out to be like Scarf or something, and then he could have been in trouble if it like kept U-turning or something. Luckily for Reggie, that didn't happen. Yeah. There was that the whole trapping the Sableye thing, which is a good idea on paper, and then it turns out it's a ghost type. I'll take some responsibility for that because I actually mocked Reggie, and then he trapped in my Sableye during the mock, and then I didn't know that ghosts were able to escape, and then I didn't try to escape, so Reggie thought it would work. So I'll take some responsibility for that. But other than that, I think he probably should have brought Roost on Kyurem as a side thought. But other than that, I think he played the game fine, brought what he needed to win. And he's probably one of also the other few battlers here on this list who understands how to make the most out of every turn for the most part, and how to put himself in a position to win. Or at the very least, he showed it in this battle. In previous battles, I think he maybe struggled with that a little bit, especially against Robot Boy. But this battle, I think he played fine. And yeah, I have him all the way up at number 3 now. Number 2, I have Hazy and the Puerto Rico Frokies. He played against Jolty, and yeah, he played fine, really. Just played a really solid game, actually. I went over a lot of Jolty's, or not even a lot of Jolty's issues. There's very few nitpicky issues, but I think both of them played a fine game. It was a good battle to watch, really down to the wire. Brought fine prep, and really just did what he needed to win. I think maybe not knowing what stamina did hurt him quite a bit. Also forgot to mention that on Jolty's side, that his Mudstill was actually really nice spring and did a lot of work. But yeah, he just brought everything he needed to win the game and did it. Definitely a really close game between them, and good one to watch. And yeah, just not a ton I can really nitpick on his team right now. Just played fine, and other than that Mudstill play, I think it was fine playing. There was like the play where he kept U-turning on the Mudstill, but that play I think was really understandable because he didn't have switch-ins to the Marowak, so he really couldn't afford it coming in. So he was really at Jolty's mercy at that moment. But yeah, past that, yeah, fine playing by both sides, and he's 3-0, so I have him at number 2 because he has some pretty decent wins. I was actually very close to moving him up to number 1 just because Jolty's a really nice win, I think, and he possibly has higher key wins than my number 1, but I don't know. You can like judge for yourself. But no, number 1 is Jeff. He's crushing Hazy on differential, but Hazy also has better wins, debatably. So I really don't know who to credit here. I'll just keep Jeff at number 1 just because I don't think there's enough evidence at the current moment to overturn him, but I think Hazy definitely closed the gap by getting that really nice win right there. And he really just manhandled Kudo. I already went over this week why Kudo got manhandled, but like Jeff didn't even need to put in effort. This was just a really bad showing. He got the 6-0, so like you really can't get better than that. Yeah, I can't penalize him for 6-0ing in the lowest coaches, so I'll keep him at number 1. And really just not a ton to say. No real misplays either. Played the game perfectly fine. There had to have been a forced misplay, and Kudo did not put him in any bad snares whatsoever, and he played the game to the fullest destruction, I suppose. So yeah, not really much to comment on here either. So yeah, I guess I'll just finish it there. Yeah, Jeff is the number one, and that's it.